Chapter 936, Multi-Layered Goo Formation. Fang Yuan held in his excitement. The immortal material in his hands was of very high quality. Even in his previous life, he had never owned such a specimen. Quasi-rank 9 immortal material. It had so many Dao marks that it shined with bright light, observable with the naked eye. Fang Yuan was not a grandmaster in refinement path, but he knew something. The reason why immortal materials could be used to refine immortal goo was because the immortal materials themselves contain a lot of Dao marks. Man is the spirit of all beings. Goo are the essence of heaven and earth. Gu worms were the vessels of the great Dao. Why did they contain power? That was because the tiny goo worm contained Dao marks. Dao marks were the traces of the great Dao of heaven and earth. Precisely because of this, activating goo worms would result in many magical effects. The more Dao marks in a goo worm, the higher their rank would be, and the more powerful and profound their abilities would be. Refining an immortal goo was to gather the Dao marks in countless mortal goo and immortal materials, using the ones needed for the refinement. Now, Fang Yuan's immortal material had many Dao marks. In theory, it could be used to refine a rank 8 immortal goo. In fact, he only needed to use a tiny fragment of it to refine a rank 6 immortal goo. The Dao marks in a rank 8 immortal goo were tens of thousands of times that of a rank 6 immortal goo. Of course, this bee wing that resembles a tiger-striped honey bee mainly contains metal path Dao marks. If I am trying to refine a metal path immortal goo, this would be very useful. Unfortunately, this has no use if I want to refine star thought immortal goo. Fang Yuan collected this precious immortal material properly. He could not use it now, but he might need it in the future. Even if he did not, this was such a precious immortal material. It would create a huge commotion in treasure yellow heaven. There was no need to worry that it would not be sold. I finally had some gains after entering this goo formation. Fang Yuan's mind started to think deeply. He was not rushing towards the center. He was starting to explore this desolate land of purple sand. As expected, a moment later, he had another discovery while flying. In the purple sand, there was a white veil that resembled a handkerchief that attracted his gaze. That he quickly descended, feeling joy after inspecting it. The aura could not be fake. This was another rank 8 immortal material, but the quality was slightly lower than the bee wing earlier. There was no light from Dao marks. Fang Yuan held it in his hands. The immortal material did not disintegrate after leaving the purple sand. It seems that immortal materials of this level are no longer affected by the power of the purple sand. Fang Yuan squeezed it. This immortal material was very soft. It could be molded into different forms. So this is not a veil, but a piece of cloud? Fang Yuan observed carefully, feeling surprised. This was like a fragment of a cloud, but it contained a huge amount of cloud path Dao marks. Is this? Fang Yuan's felt excitement. He activated his goo worms and spat out a mouthful of water vapor. When this immortal material was covered in water vapor, it became lighter and floated out of Fang Yuan's hands. It rose into the sky and turned into a tiny cloud in the form of a phoenix. The phoenix's wings moved slowly as the cloud danced in the air. Fang Yuan's body shook. He was overjoyed. As expected, this is a fragment of the immemorial desolate beast cloud phoenix's body. Fang Yuan's heart was pounding. This cloud phoenix was not a life form from the 5 regions. It was a mystical creature that only existed in white heaven of the immemorial 9 heavens. It was not born with a phoenix bloodline. Instead, it was an ancient cloud that would not face destruction even after 10,000 years in white heaven. After having a phoenix's aura or blood transmitted and spread through it, the cloud would slowly turn into a living being. Thus, its body was very special. It was neither made of flesh and blood nor clouds. The cloud phoenix fragment that Fang Yuan obtained was less than a fraction of the cloud phoenix's true body. But the cloud path Dao marks inside could be used to refine a rank 6 immortal goo at least 10 times as the main material. The discovery of the cloud phoenix affirmed Fang Yuan's earlier guess. He continued exploring. Not long after, he circulated entirely around the purple desert. He had huge gains. Counting his gains, he had a total of 18 of such immortal materials. The Dao mark varieties covered the majority of goo paths, among which 3 materials had a lot of star path or wisdom path Dao marks. They were very helpful in refining star thought immortal goo. One could say that with these three immortal materials, Fang Yuan could forget about blazing heaven demonis and refine the goo himself. Of course, because of the change in immortal materials, the recipe of star thought immortal goo would have to change as well. But Fang Yuan was not afraid of this. He could use the light of wisdom to easily do it. He was also a wisdom path grandmaster now. It was not difficult to deduce. Even though the immortal materials that I collected are incredibly precious, they are only a small part of the corpse's bodies. The goo immortal who created this place, they actually used so many precious immortal materials. Are they trying to refine a rank 9 immortal goo? Fang Yuan could not help but guess that in the process of collecting immortal materials, he started to realize something. This desolate land of purple sand once had an incredibly profound refinement path goo formation. Combined with these fragmented immortal materials, it was likely that the goo immortal had a grand ambition. They were trying to refine an immensely powerful immortal goo. But it was a pity. The goo refinement failed and a huge explosion occurred. Not only was the refinement path goo formation destroyed, with only debris left, most of the goo refinement immortal materials were destroyed, only these fragments remained. Regardless of who it is or what organization it is, they are most likely dead from the explosion. If not for that, this goo formation would not be left unmaintained for such a long time. The immortal material fragments here would not be scattered everywhere without anyone taking them. Even though the immortal materials were just remnants after the explosion, they were very valuable. With rank 8 and quasi-rank 9 immortal materials involved, even rank 8 goo immortals would be moved. If old ancestor Shui, who knew that Fang Yuan had such a large number of precious immortal materials, he would forget about his face and come to find trouble with Fang Yuan in a hurried in order to refine the rank 8 fortune rivaling heaven immortal goo. Old ancestor Shui, who was already going bankrupt trying to find the supplementary immortal materials. Even though he had Fang Yuan as the main material, that if not for that, he would not thrown away his face as a rank 8 great expert and have gone to Zombie Alliance's graveyard to steal immortal zombie corpses in place of the materials. Thinking of this, Fang Yuan's worry eased slightly. Since this mysterious and powerful goo immortal organization was gone, this trip was much less dangerous now. Fang Yuan looked around. He saw that there was something new in the desolate land of purple sand. In the endless depths of history, who knows how many truths of the past has been buried? How many incredible people died inconspicuously without anyone knowing? The commotion stirred up by them fades eventually. Legends disappear. Getting rid of these thoughts, Fang Yuan came to the center of the desolate land of purple sand. This was the only area he had not explored yet in this entire desolate land. Even though he obtained many immortal materials, Fang Yuan was still slightly disappointed. In his previous life, rumors said that there was a way to get rid of his immortal zombie body and revive. But why has he not found it yet? Fang Yuan's intuition was, at the central area of this desolate land, it should be the center of the goo formation as well. If it was not here, then Fang Yuan would never find it elsewhere. Looking around, at the center of the desolate land, there was only small fragmented purple sand. This was the center of the explosion. The purple sand was much finer than outside. There were no immortal materials. He looked around. There were nothing. But under Fang Yuan's investigative methods, he made a discovery of some remnants of the goo formation deep under the purple sand. This is indeed the central control area of the entire place. What an amazing person. This is actually a multi-layered goo formation, having such an incredible design. This must be the work of a formation path great grandmaster. Fang Yuan inspected as he felt shock internally. It turned out that the entire space was mainly focused on using the refinement path goo formation. But what originally built this space, including the space path formation, was only a supplementary formation outside the refinement path goo formation. Other than the space path goo formation, Fang Yuan also found many defensive goo formations, some food path goo formations, and some phantom path goo formations. Food path throughout history had never been widely spread. It was even rarer today. Fang Yuan did not understand much about it, but he had heard that food path was specialized in feeding goo worms. The food path supplementary goo formation here should be used to feed these goo worms. After all, A goo formation needs countless goo worms to work together in combination. There are still 2 or 3 food path goo formations in use here. It is hard to imagine that after the Great Explosion, the goo formation here is still working. Maybe that is the reason why the outermost space path goo formation is still functioning. This discovered unraveled one mystery for Fang Yuan. This is a phantom path goo formation. As he continued to observe, Fang Yuan made a new discovery. This phantom path goo formation was already destroyed, but there were 2 or 3 mortal goo left, buried deep in the purple sand. They are not moving and were barely alive. Using the food path goo formation to maintain their lives, Fang Yuan had even less knowledge regarding phantom path, but during the Battle of Taichio, Dong Fangchang Fan had once used a ruined bat corpse to set up a huge phantom formation. If not for that, Fang Yuan would not have recognized this goo formation immediately. The phantom formation turns the entire goo formation into a phantom and prevents outside attacks from destroying the goo formation. Maybe this is the reason why the goo formation survived the Great Explosion. Refinement path goo immortals with such attainment levels have their own refinement path goo formations, and also many supplementary goo formations on top of the refinement path goo formation. Using these goo formations, the refinement path goo worms will be twice as effective for half the effort. They would save a lot of time and energy. For example, Snowy Mountain Blessed Land has an exquisite refinement path goo formation. It is known as the best formation for refinement path in Northern Plains demonic path. It is said that this goo formation is also a multi-layered goo formation, using a total of 12 different goo formations. Fang Yuan's thoughts churned that he could set up some refinement path goo formations as well. But these goo formations were very superficial. After all, they had to do with his formation path attainment. Fang Yuan's formation path attainment level was very low. A person has limited energy and even more limited time. Fang Yuan had some accomplishments in certain aspects. He naturally had areas where he was inferior to other people. Chapter 937, Life and Death, Immortal Aperture. The goo formation in Snowy Mountain Blessed Land was not set up by old ancestor Shui, he was a rank 8 great expert. But he could not set up such a goo formation. Tio set up this goo formation. Old ancestor Shui, who personally went to ask the number 1 formation path goo immortal in Northern Plains, Sun Ming Lu, for help. Sun Ming Lu was a righteous path goo immortal. He had a firm personality and refused to cooperate. Old ancestor Shui, who knew that he could not be forceful, he put down his status and asked him for help numerous times. After 7 invitations, in which old ancestor Shui, who talked about Lady Wan's show at the final time, Sun Ming Lu finally was convinced. Even though Sun Ming Lu was someone with extremely firm will, he treasured love and loyalty. Old ancestor Shui, who was setting up the refinement path goo formation for his beloved wife, their love touched him, therefore he helped. This matter caused a huge commotion in the Northern Plains goo immortal world back then. In Fang Yuan's previous life, Sun Ming Lu fought intensely with the Central Continent goo immortals. He set up a goo formation that prevented the Central Continent goo immortals from advancing. Eventually, the goo formation was broken, and Sun Ming Lu died. After he died, someone made a biography of him. Inside, biography of Sun Ming Lu, the matter about old ancestor Shui, whose invitation was recorded clearly. According to my deduction using this goo formation's remains, it has at least 30 layers. The 12-layered goo formation that Sun Ming Lu made caused him to become the publicly recognized number 1 formation path goo immortal in Northern Plains. Then the goo immortal who made this arrangement here must be a great grandmaster. Or rather, they could even be a supreme grandmaster. Supreme grandmaster, the attainment level above great grandmaster, a transcendent realm. For example, the 3 supreme grandmasters in refinement path, long hair ancestor, old eccentric Tian Nan, and old immortal Kong Ju. All 3 of them were unprecedented and unique. They had achievements that could not be surpassed. Food path goo formation, phantom path goo formation, metal path goo formation, strength path goo formation. Fang Yuan's eyes shined brightly. His gaze pierced past the purple sand and looked into all the traces of the goo formations. His heart gradually sank. He had not forgotten his original goal. Looking at the situation, there was little hope of obtaining a revival method. These goo formations were all Near the brink of destruction, mortal goo inside were barely alive. There were 0 immortal goo left. Maybe because the strong received the greatest burden, the explosion destroyed all of the immortal goo. Or maybe it was because the 2 or 3 food path goo formations could not feed the immortal goo, and as time passed, they all starved to death. Eventually, Fang Yuan found a wisdom path goo formation that was extremely tattered at the deepest level. This was the 7th wisdom path goo formation that he had discovered. The goo formation was so fragmented that Fang Yuan bore no hope. But he took a glance and realized that there was an unexpected gain in this goo formation. There were some thoughts left behind in this tattered goo formation. These thoughts were in a state of complete rest. It was probably the effect of this wisdom path goo formation. Since there were thoughts, they could interact. Fang Yuan breathed in deeply. He mustered his strength and started to deduce this wisdom path goo formation. He was very careful. This wisdom path goo formation was like a building that was going to collapse. Fang Yuan needed to act very meticulously. Thankfully, he was a wisdom path grandmaster already. He had a high attainment level. A moment later, he deciphered this relatively simple wisdom path goo formation and successfully invaded it, controlling this delicate goo formation. Next, he sent out thoughts into the goo formation and started to interact with the thoughts that were at rest. After using up more than 80 years, this goo formation is finally complete. In the next few hundred years, or even thousands of years, I will be refining goo here. I became an immortal zombie. Even though I am not restricted by lifespan, my mind is no longer as agile. Thus, I asked Yellow to add in this small goo formation and store my thoughts so that they can help me think. This goo formation is too useful. Not only can it help me refine goo, it can also conceal us from the perception of heaven's will. Using only 200 years, I successfully refined 8 soul path immortal goo, among which 6 are rank 7, and 2 are rank 8. Every year, they send me lots of immortal materials. I would never have imagined this day where I would not be able to use up my immortal materials. I have countless immortal materials. This is so blissful. I should start to attempt those incomplete immortal goo recipes. An unexpected surprise occurred today when refining goo. I tried to complete the immortal goo recipe of Devour Soul Immortal Goo, but in the end I refined an immortal goo with an unknown effect. Even though it is also a soul path immortal goo, I will let the others do the work of testing its effect. My goo refinement failed. 3 of my defensive goo formations were destroyed. Even my main refinement path goo formation was damaged. That liar in Treasure Yellow Heaven, that unscrupulous merchant, he dared to use a tampered immortal material to deceive me. I will tear out his tendons and pull out his skin to vent my hatred. That unscrupulous merchant was already punished. Azure is really amazing. These days, Yellow arrived and repaired all of the goo formations. I can refine goo again. Purple came to inform me to be careful. Azure has met with trouble. It turns out that the unscrupulous merchant goo immortal who deceived me was a pawn of Heavenly Court. Fate. It still exists. Red Lotus Demon Venerable did not manage to destroy it thoroughly. It is the assistant of accursed heaven. It will be destroyed one day. Azure's problem is getting more and more serious. Sacrificing any one of us 7 is a huge loss to all of us. Sigh. I harmed him, but he has already made up his mind. Maybe I can try that now. Before leaving, he took that soul path immortal goo, so that immortal goo's effect is like this. I hope it can help him out. Azure failed. His state is so pitiful. He is only one step from complete annihilation. Yellow barely managed to preserve his life, but his injuries cannot be healed. It can only be fixed through time. This would take at least hundreds or thousands of years. Our greatest battle strength has been lost. Azure's failure made me realize something fully. Our previous methods will not work. We are all born with flaws. Heaven and earth will not tolerate our existence. As green, I must comprehend the profound meaning of life and death. Nobody is more suited for this mission than me. We can only restart if I can find a way to truly revive and obtain an immortal aperture that is full of vitality. At this point, Fang Yuan's heart shook. He showed some excitement on his face. Currently, it seems that this is a strong and mysterious organization. The members refer to each other with code names, among which are yellow, green, purple, azure. If they have a total of 7 members, they probably use the colors of the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, azure, blue, purple. I will call this organization 7 Rainbows for now. Fang Yuan paused in his speculations. He continued to send his thoughts into the goo formation, interacting with the motionless thoughts inside the goo formation. The following thoughts were missing a huge chunk. They were no longer as closely connected as the previous ones. It seems that each thought was made after a long period of time. My attempt succeeded. Today, I found another revival method, but to me, what significance does such an ordinary revival method have? I do not need it. Blue obtained a goo immortal inheritance. It was left behind by old immortal Kong Ju in Central Continent. He had researched deeply into the 10 extreme physiques. I have great gains from this. No, I have immense gains. Yellow and purple worked together and obtained an inheritance of limitless demon venerable. Ha ha ha, truly worthy of limitless demon venerable. His achievements in rule path are unprecedented and might never be surpassed. Even I am vastly inferior. Limitless demon venerable is correct. There is life and death and life. Life and death can be interchanged. Except that under normal circumstances, turning from life to death is a natural process. It flows smoothly. But to turn from death to life, it would be extremely difficult, like traveling upstream. Meanwhile, immortal zombies are stuck between life and death. They are the manifestation of the profound mysteries of life and death. Life has its advantages, death has its uses. An immortal zombie's immortal aperture might be a dead aperture, but it is safe from calamities and tribulations. This is a huge advantage of death. Limitless Demon Venerable's direction is correct. I should move forward in this aspect. I am sure to make shocking achievements. I succeeded. This is an unimaginable result. Limitless Demon Venerable was incredibly talented. Actually, he was only some steps away from success. An immortal zombie's dead aperture is extremely precious. It has many uses. If this result is exposed, the entire goo immortal world would be shaken. Even I myself was shocked immensely. Next, Fang Yuan got more and more stunned as his eyes burst with shining light. His expression visibly changed. According to these thoughts, when a goo immortal cultivates, they should first turn into an immortal zombie and obtain a dead immortal aperture. Next, they would revive, obtaining a life and death immortal aperture. This immortal aperture has 2 layers. One layer is of life, and the other layer is of death. Life and death are able to coexist with each other and are interchangeable. It would be an immense help to the goo immortal in terms of cultivating or undergoing tribulations. Ordinary goo immortal who are alive were filled with vitality and cannot control death. Ordinary immortal zombies have death energy emanating in their dead apertures. They have death without life. They could only contain the mysteries of death. The former had too much vitality. With such immense fortune, heaven would seek balance. Thus, every once in a while, there would be heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities to create losses to the goo immortal. The latter was full of death energy and had no calamities or tribulations, but would slowly disintegrate and could not contain cultivation resources. The immortal aperture that Fang Yuan obtained when ascending had already disintegrated by more than half.in time. It would completely disappear. The entire immortal aperture would vanish. By then, Fang Yuan would only have his mortal dead aperture left. But according to this cultivation method contained in the thoughts, I can use the dead aperture as the core and fuse life and death during the process of revival, condensing them into one aperture, and form the life and death immortal aperture to control life and death to a certain degree. With this life and death immortal aperture, the power of the heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities I face from now on would be halved. Most importantly, the Tao marks I obtain would not be reduced at all. Fang Yuan was greatly moved. Any goo immortal would be moved. If this method really works, then it would truly shock the entire goo immortal world. It would not be an exaggeration to say that the entire world would go into chaos. Chapter 938. Successfully returning to the city. With a whooshing sound at a nook of the Yiksha octopus's cave, a green light shined brightly as the surrounding darkness was repelled. The jade green light faded. A figure appeared at the place which was previously emptied. It was Fang Yuan. Having just come out of the space created by the goo formation, he had used fixed immortal travel immortal goo, and this place had been specially arranged earlier. When he explored the Yiksha octopus's underground cave, he had set up many mortal goo here, forming a simple and crude goo formation. There was nothing that could be done about it. Fang Yuan's formation path attainment was very low. He could only use goo formations of this level. The goo formation could only conceal most of the disturbance, but fixed immortal travel was, after all, an immortal goo. When Fang Yuan appeared, this mortal goo formation immediately broke apart. Some aura leaked out. Fang Yuan quickly used his methods to get rid of these traces, but soon he heard the growling of desolate beasts as well as the movement of the Yiksha octopuses in the cave. The surrounding Yiksha octopuses are back already? Fang Yuan's eyes shined with bright light. He took action rapidly, eliminating the immortal goo aura before the Yiksha octopuses returned and quickly left. The Yiksha octopuses felt the aura of the immortal goo and were stirred up, but when they arrived, there were no traces remaining. The octopuses searched around and saw nothing. Their uncertainty gradually vanished. They turned around and left. If they were goo immortals, they would not be so easy to fool. Desolate beasts lacked intelligence. Thus Fang Yuan could easily deal with them. Before long, he returned to the battlefield with the mouth earthworm. It was a messy scene. Most of the Yiksha octopuses had retreated, while the northern plains immortal zombies were nowhere to be found. A huge gorge, like a long scar along the earth trench, was displayed in front of Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan's lips curled up. He smiled silently. He knew that this gorge was dug by the mouth earthworm. Mouth earthworms were creatures that primarily lived under the surface. They stayed there most of the time, only coming to the surface when hunting for food. After devouring the prey rapidly, they would dig back under the soil and stop moving at the same time. Their bodies would shrink at a shocking rate, turning from gigantic fat masses to being like bamboo poles this time. The thick meat in their bodies would squeeze together tightly. The unique apparatus in their flesh, countless sharp bony teeth, would rotate and grind the prey into flesh and blood. This mouth earthworm swallowed me, but I used fixed immortal travel inside its body to escape. It failed to hunt its prey. It would definitely rage and fight with the northern plains immortal zombies. The mouth earthworm is not their match. It does not have wisdom. It is bound to lose. But this wild beast has the instincts to escape, and it is very good at it. Once it is injured to an extent, it would dig into the soil and escape from the battle. Fang Yuan's eyes shined with eerie light that if not for this, he would not have chosen to use the mouth earthworm to escape from the immortal zombies' sights. Previously in Dark Flow Giant City, he had obtained information about Dragon Commander Yi Cha and the others. He knew that they did not have an effective way to deal with the underground mouth earthworm. Their investigative methods could not bypass the abundant earth path down marks on the mouth earthworm. Thus Fang Yuan dared to use fixed immortal travel immortal goo inside its body. Thus, even though there were many individuals among the northern plains immortal zombies, and they had great battle strength, they could not do anything to this mouth earthworm for a period of time, especially when the mouth earthworm did not want to fight and was using all its efforts to escape. Battle strength did not mean everything. For example, old ancestor Shui, who with rank 8 cultivation level could fight against both Yao Huang and Heavenly Lord Bai Zhu and force them to retreat. He had incredible battle strength. But to create the goo formation, he still needed to ask Sun Ming Lu 7 times. Even rank 9 venerables were like this. In the history of goo immortals, Giant Sun Immortal Venerable and Thieving Heaven Demon Venerable had asked Longhair Ancestor to refine goo for them. There were all sorts of paths in goo cultivation. That meant that specialists tackled their own fields. Even if a person cultivates a path to rank 9, they would still be lacking proficiency in other areas. After all, there was a limit to their energy. Unless they had a lot of time or a certain degree of fortuitous encounters. The mouth earthworm escaped, while the northern plains immortal zombies chased. The traces of battle extended along the way. During this journey, many things could be seen. Pits created from explosions, blood inside the gorges, most likely the mouth earthworm's blood. Other than that, there were also many pieces of the corpses of earth trenches creatures that were drawn into the chaos in order to live. The mouth earthworm was going all out. This helped Fang Yuan conceal his traces to a large extent. One side chased, while the other escaped. This extended battlefield had been formed. Seeing the intense fighting along the way, Fang Yuan smiled lightly. In order to escape, the mouth earthworm must have panicked and led the northern plains immortal zombies to the territories of other fierce beasts. Good. The more chaotic this scene is, the more advantageous for me. This is just like what I had calculated earlier. Next, Fang Yuan followed along the traces of battle and flew rapidly, his body submerging into the darkness. The northern plains immortal zombies were flying dejectedly. Their injuries were not light. They were in pathetic states, with ashen expressions. What can we do? Xing Xiangzi died. How can we explain this to Lady Blazing Heaven Demonis? Sigh, we did our best. Assaulting the mouth earthworm along the way, we went through the territories of 5 fierce beasts, among which 3 are ancient desolate beasts. Keep in mind, this is the Earth Trench. I have never acted so crazy before. Unfortunately, our efforts were in vain. This mouth earthworm fell into the acid bog. It had completely dissolved. Xing Xiangzi was not spared. There's no way we can sacrifice our lives for him, right? In my opinion, Xing Xiangzi was too careless. Acting so careless in Earth Trench, he was simply courting death. The immortal zombies spoke quietly. Only the leader, Dragon Commander Yi Cha, was silent. He had the highest status among these people. He was the leader. He held the biggest responsibility towards Xing Xiangzi's demise. Thinking about Blazing Heaven Demonis, Dragon Commander Yi Cha's heart felt extremely heavy. Everyone, we finally meet again. Fang Yuan turned into Xing Xiangzi, appearing in front of the immortal zombies. At once, the northern plains immortal zombies were stunned. Xing Xiangzi. Dr. Yin Xian called out. His gaze was full of joy. The other immortal zombies were the same. Even Landlord Lei Yu looked at Fang Yuan, feeling that it was very pleasing to see this old man. How did you escape? An immortal zombie asked. This question was in everyone's minds. Several gazes were all focused on Fang Yuan's face. Fang Yuan was prepared for this. He gave his explanation. Alas, when I was trapped inside the mouth earthworm's stomach, the surrounding flesh squeezed me, and numerous teeth started rotating. In that dangerous state, I used my immortal goo for an immortal killer move, sealing myself into star ice. This is my strongest defensive move. It was able to block the teeth. But there was a drawback. I could not move at all, not just my body, but my thoughts as well. Therefore, I could not think. The star ice would only exist for a short period of time, but I believed that everyone would save me. All I had to do was to wait until the star ice melted, and when I regained my freedom, I found that I was buried under some rubble. So that's it. Dr. Yin Xian realized. Xing Xiangzi must have fell out when we were chasing the mouth earthworm and fighting in the chaotic battle, creating wounds that tore its flesh open. So close, so close. Xing Xiangzi, you were really lucky. The immortal zombies did not have any suspicions. Dragon Commander Yi Cha heaved a sigh of relief. That is good. Do you still need to collect Star Night mucus? Fang Yuan's face changed. He showed a hesitant expression, saying, Forget it. I was unlucky now. Let's go back and rest first. We will talk about it later. The immortal zombies glanced at each other, secretly laughing inside about Xing Xiangzi's timidness. But after such an intense battle, their bodies were in bad shape as well. Thus, everyone agreed to return to Dark Flow Giant City and rest at AS for the remaining Star Night mucus. That was a problem for later. A few days later, Dark Flow Giant City. In the secret room, the refinement path goo formation was shining with a dazzling light. The light shined on Fang Yuan's face, but now his mind was elsewhere. Possible. This is totally possible. Fang Yuan said internally he was using the goo formation to process the goo refinement materials on the surface, but he was actually inside his dead aperture, controlling goo worms to do an experiment. He was very vigilant. Even though he obtained a revival method in Earth Trench, it had a dubious origin. Fang Yuan had to experiment on it and test if it was usable. The results all proved that this revival method was usable. Fang Yuan was excited and deeply moved. Looking back over the past, Fang Yuan had been collecting revival methods ever since Imperial Court Blessed Land was destroyed, facing many difficulties. The first revival method he collected, of Time Path, That was to use man as before immortal goo with time anchor immortal goo to revive himself. But though this method might have great potential, it was only a conjecture to complete it. He needed to cooperate with Shark Demon and invest an immense amount of time and resources into it. Next, Fang Yuan found the possession method from Dong Fang Chong Fan's soul. Using this, he could achieve the target of getting rid of his immortal zombie state. But if he used this method, not only would there be questions on whether the body would suit his soul and the aptitude of the body, but the second aperture that Fang Yuan had put in so much effort to obtain would be gone for good. Following that, Fang Yuan obtained a method of using a 10 extreme physique immortal ascension to get rid of the immortal zombie state from Feng Huang. At the Refinement Path Convention, this method was even less plausible. It was suited for mortal goo masters. Fang Yuan was already an immortal zombie. He would need to use his first mortal aperture to undergo immortal ascension. He did not have one of the 10 extreme physiques either. He had insufficient aptitude. Even though he had blood skull goo, he already had Dao marks in his body. He could not use mortal goo to raise his aptitude. Finally, in the Starry Sky Grotto Heaven Fragment World, Feng Huang told Fang Yuan another revival method. Using theory involving transformation path, in combination with everlasting goo, he could achieve a permanent transformation. That was the same as revival. But what was the way to refine everlasting goo? Fang Yuan did not know that if someone else had everlasting immortal goo, the situation would be even worse. Fang Yuan did not excel greatly in transformation path either. These methods, even though they could succeed, they all had drawbacks and could not be achieved easily. But as the saying goes, one determined to work hard would not be disappointed. After so much turmoil and difficulties, Fang Yuan finally found the best and most suitable method for himself inside Northern Plains Zombie Alliances. Earth Trench. Chapter 939. Dual 10 Extreme Physique Rank 9 Demon Venerable? Since the creator had yet to name the method, Fang Yuan gave it a tentative name, Life and Death Immortal Aperture Revival Method. The true value of this method was absolutely priceless. If it were to be leaked out to the public, the whole cultivation world would be shaken and the current situation of the world would change. Countless goo immortals, even the secluded rank 8s, would start researching it immediately with their full efforts and attempt to use the method. Once a large portion of goo immortals obtain this method, from then on, the number of goo immortals in all the 5 regions would start to increase explosively in an unprecedented fashion. Because the life and death immortal aperture contained the mysteries of both life and death, it could reduce the might of heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities, and the extent of that reduction was as high as an entire 50%. What did that imply? The cultivation journeys of goo immortals had 2 difficulties that they had to pass. One was that of limited lifespan, and the other was the presence of calamities and tribulations. Increasing cultivation level could not increase lifespan. Thus, goo immortals could only seek out other methods to prolong their lifespans by all means possible. Ignoring that for the time being. Right now, calamities and tribulations were to be emphasized. Gu immortal would face calamities and tribulations once in a while. Heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities were like blades of an executioner hanging over the heads of goo immortals. During times of peace, most goo immortals would die as a result of calamities and tribulations. Countless records within history and practical examples and experiences in real life serve to remind goo immortals time and time again about how terrifying and fatal these threats were. Calamities and tribulations were unpredictable, and their power was not equal. Instead, the difficulty increased gradually. Gu immortals needed to work hard in their cultivation and raise their strength continuously to have a chance of passing the tribulations, and cultivation was not simply a theoretical matter. Resources for cultivation were required, like immortal materials, immortal goo, immortal killer moves, immortal goo houses, and so on. An immortal aperture was the best place to cultivate and harvest immortal materials. Because the environment of the immortal aperture was special, it had many Dao marks and could grow relevant immortal materials that were suitable for the goo immortal, in accordance with their situation. Moreover, time flowed much faster in the immortal aperture when compared to the 5 regions. Thus, the immortal materials could be harvested more frequently and provide higher gains overall. there was another reason as well. Nurturing cultivation resources in the immortal aperture could be done much more safely, and they could be carried around with the person conveniently. It was quite dangerous to place immortal materials outside. Not only could they be easily seized by others, there could also be overbearing experts like blazing heaven demonists who would even attempt to destroy them if they were unable to obtain them. However, the problem was that every heavenly tribulation and earthly calamity would result in heavy negative repercussions on the immortal aperture, but it was already not a simple matter for Gu immortals to pass calamities and tribulations. To prevent damage to the entirety of their immortal aperture was nearly impossible. The cultivation resources that were stored in the immortal aperture would often be destroyed to a large extent that Gu immortals would have to once again accumulate the cultivation resources to continue their cultivation. There were even some who might have to start all over from scratch. If that happened, a vicious cycle would be formed. Accumulating cultivation resources, cultivating, increasing in strength, passing tribulations, reaccumulating resources, cultivating, increasing in strength slowly, passing even tougher tribulations. The calamities and tribulations would become stronger and stronger, while their resources would need to be accumulated all over again each time, greatly delaying the growth of the strength of the Gu immortal. The strength of many Gu immortals might be insufficient for keeping up with the required speed. Their growth might even sometimes be stagnant. So how could they cope with the even more terrifying calamities and tribulations? Thus, since ancient times, countless Gu immortals had lost everything to heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities and perished. Hu immortal was a typical example. She had passed 4 earthly calamities, but at the 5th calamity, she encountered a blue charm lightning shadow and died due to it. Her obsession turned into the land spirit of Hu immortal blessed land, which was finally obtained by Fang Yuan. Of course, there was a method to reduce the threat. That was to move out the cultivation resources in advance. Previously, Fang Yuan had done this, but in fact, very few Gu immortals would do such a thing. They were obviously not foolish. So what was the reason? The reason was because of the targeting natures of heavenly tribulations and earthly calamities. For instance, a wood path Gu immortal who moved out all their wood path resources before facing a calamity or tribulation may instead end up attracting a fire path calamity or tribulation. After passing the tribulation, the immortal aperture would be greatly affected, gaining many fire path down marks, which would cause changes in the environment and temperature. When the wood path Gu immortal brings back all the previously moved out cultivation resources, many of those resources would not be suitable to be cultivated in this completely new environment. On the contrary, if the wood path resources were kept in the blessed land and attracted a wood path tribulation, the immortal aperture's wood path down marks would increase. Although there would be losses, the environment of the immortal aperture would become even more ideal. Countless examples of success and failure, countless summaries of the experiences of predecessors proved one thing clearly. Keeping the resources when facing a tribulation was wiser than moving them away, and was even more beneficial for the Gu immortal's cultivation journey. Fang Yuan had previously moved out his resources, which led to a blood path calamity that was essentially unsuitable for the growth of the previous resources. However, Hu immortal blessed land was not compatible with his path, so this was not a big problem. Later on, when Tai Bai Yunsheng faced the calamity in his immortal aperture, he chose to keep his resources even when aware of how severe the loss could be. It was because the immortal aperture that was undergoing an earthly calamity was his most essential foundation. Only after understanding this kind of information could one truly realize the terrifying value of the life and death immortal aperture method. Although Gu immortals were high and mighty above the masses, calamities and tribulations hung above their head. They had to cultivate endlessly and make huge progress at every phase of their cultivation, and had to keep on making more progress. Only then could they continue to survive. But if they had a life and death immortal aperture, everything would be different. It directly reduced the power of calamities and tribulations by 50%. With the sharp decrease in the power of calamities and tribulations, the loss of their cultivation resources would be less, while there would be no drop in the number of Dao marks gained. This was enough to benefit the cycle for the Gu immortals' cultivation. Accumulating cultivation resources. Cultivating. increasing in strength, passing tribulations. On top the original foundation, one can continue to accumulate resources, cultivating even quicker, experiencing a greater increase in strength, and passing a slightly stronger tribulation. With just a living immortal aperture, the calamities and tribulations would keep on growing stronger. Gu immortals could barely endure them as it was, and as their cultivation increased, it would be even more difficult for them to advance. And if they only had a dead immortal aperture, the immortal aperture would continue to crumble. Resources could not be accumulated quickly, and there was no hope of progress. It was simply a doomed ending. However, a life and death immortal aperture created a cycle that allowed the Gu immortal's strength to snowball and accumulate, and have increasingly greater assurance in passing future tribulations. Undoubtedly, this was an accomplishment that surpassed the current era. It could change the whole Gu immortal world. The entire world would be revolutionized. The history of Gu masters would be changed henceforth. It might seem to be simply a revival method, but it contained such monstrous power. More accurately speaking, it was no longer just a simple revival method. It was a method of cultivation. This technique that had improved upon the foundation of limitless demon venerables concept was, without doubt, much more superior than the methods of cultivation that had been passed down for countless years. Such a grand feat, in the context of Earth's history, was like the invention of steam engine, electricity, and calculator. They had incredibly significant importance. The traditional Gu master cultivation methods were passed down from Renzu's era, and there were almost no changes done to it since if the life and death immortal aperture method was publicized. It would be akin to the theory of general relativity of Einstein, which overthrew Newton's first law. If it were other Gu immortals, they might find it hard to accept this for a period of time, even thinking that this was an unrealistic fantasy. It might even be considered sacrilegious. After all, immortal zombies had low status, while this method placed much importance on their dead immortal apertures and instead held them in high regard. But Fang Yuan's own soul was from Earth. He had an open mind. The authority of the traditional way of Gu cultivation had not been deeply ingrained into his mind at this moment. His mind was filled with exclamations of praise. The methods of humans continue to progress over time. History continues to be written. Gu cultivation can fully be regarded as another form of science. It continues to advance and develop with time. In the past, in ancient times, there were indeed countless wise and capable geniuses who had glorious and brilliant accomplishments. But those of future generations stand on these shoulders of their predecessors. Using their foundations, they are able to have even more brilliant and splendid accomplishments. Like this mysterious great expert immortal zombie who invented the life and death immortal aperture revival method. They had stood on old immortal Kong Ju's shoulders. They used limitless demon venerables accomplishments in rule path and combined them with their own talents before they were finally able to create this improved cultivation method. Fang Yuan continued to ponder. The more he thought about it, the more he realized the profundity and brilliance of this revival method. During this short period of time, Fang Yuan could only scratch the surface of this brilliant technique, but he could not comprehend the essence and origin of this brilliance. That he knew that following this method was the right course, and the result would also be ideal for him, but he did not know what principles were involved in this method. The explanation for the life and death immortal aperture could be said to be simple, but the principles involved in it were something Fang Yuan could still not understand. The contents of the life and death immortal aperture revival method were not simple. They were very complex, because it subdivided every Gu cultivation path into different revival methods. Different Gu worms needed to be refined accordingly. For instance, Fang Yuan cultivated strength path. He needed a large amount of exert strength Gu, countless disappointment Gu, and many other types of supplementary Gu worms to finally create a multi-layered Gu formation. Fang Yuan carefully thought over these ideas, feeling that they were rather interesting. When mortals started cultivating, hope Gu was needed to awaken their aperture. This method, however, required disappointment Gu and exert strength Gu. Without hope, how could there be disappointment? Without disappointment, where would hope come from? Disappointment and hope. These two concepts stood as opposites to each other, but they coexisted together. It was just like the concept of life and death. If one was gone, the other also lacked the significance for a concept of it to be formed. Fang Yuan planned inwardly. Disappointment goo and exert strength goo are merely mortal goo, so they are not difficult to gather. There are also corresponding goo recipes here. I can order the hairy men to refine them day in and day out. Even if the amount required is large, I can complete it within 3 months. Once completed, I can immediately start my revival and obtain a life and death immortal aperture. Except that the life and death immortal aperture that would be obtained in this way was somewhat unsatisfactory, because Fang Yuan's strength path immortal aperture was already mostly disintegrated. Using just the remaining dead immortal aperture as the base, the newly formed life and death immortal aperture would naturally be inferior. Be it the size, the environment, or its foundation, they would all be lacking. When Fang Yuan had been forced to ascend in northern plains, the foundation for his immortal aperture was not high in the first place. Its size was 3,500 square kilometers, and the rate of time was 16 times that of the outside world. A low-grade blessed land has a size of 2,000 square kilometers at the maximum. It can draw in a small tributary of the river of time and create over 10 beads of immortal essence. While being a land of few resources, a medium-grade blessed land can have a size of 2,700 square kilometers to 4,000 square kilometers, draw in a slightly bigger tributary of the river of time, create over 20 beads of immortal essence, and have plentiful resources. Fang Yuan's previous strength path immortal aperture was only a medium-grade blessed land. Now, if he used his currently shrunken blessed land to revive, it will definitely be a low-grade blessed land, and it was very likely for it to be low-grade even among low grades. Without doubt, this would be unfavorable to Fang Yuan's future cultivation. However, there was a segment of content about the life and death immortal aperture revival method which excited Fang Yuan greatly. During the refinement process, he could use other strength path immortal zombies' corpses as immortal materials and refine them in a goo formation. This would increase the grade of the life and death immortal aperture created. His low-grade blessed land could return to medium grade, and as long as there were sufficient strength path immortal zombies, he might even be able to raise his blessed land to high grade. When immortal zombies die, their aperture would completely dissipate, and the Dao marks in the aperture would stay in the immortal zombie body. Thus, immortal zombie bodies were rich with Dao marks and were special kinds of immortal materials. If not for this, old ancestor Shui, who would not have shamelessly sneaked into the immortal zombie graveyard to steal the corpses, the final part of this segment, it was clearly recorded. If one could obtain a great strength, true martial physique immortal zombie body and used it during the revival process, the life and death immortal aperture created would surpass that of a high-grade blessed land and become a super-grade blessed land. And after the immortal zombie revives, they would possess the great strength, true martial physique. Because He Lu Lan had advanced into an immortal with the great strength, true martial physique and possessed a super-grade blessed land, Fang Yuan understood many things regarding it. A super-grade blessed land has a vast space of over 6,700 square kilometers. Every year, the amount of immortal essence it produces would surpass 50 beads. The rate of time is even faster. Thus, precious resources can be obtained in extremely short intervals. Furthermore, the great strength true martial physique can increase my battle strength by several times. Fang Yuan's heart thumped with excitement. From this point, one could also discern that the life and death immortal aperture method was an excellent method to raise a goo immortal's aptitude. The 10 extreme physiques, they had extremely great power, but their flaws were even bigger because time flowed faster. Calamities and tribulations came quicker and more frequently. Their might becoming increasingly terrifying. For the cultivation of goo immortals, this was a big taboo. One could find out from history that none of the 10 supreme venerables had one of the 10 extreme physiques. Even among rank 8 goo immortals, it was extremely rare for someone to possess one of the 10 extreme physiques. In short, a person with one of the 10 extreme physiques could be unrivaled among those of the same rank, and could even fight against those that exceeded their rank, but they did not have the potential to grow and simply could not live for long under the barrage of calamities and tribulations. However, this huge flaw did not exist to Fang Yuan. There was only one reason for that. He possessed the life and death immortal aperture revival method, and a life and death immortal aperture reduced the might of calamities and tribulations by half. This lowered the danger to a completely acceptable level and formed a much more beneficial cycle. I can at most obtain a high-grade blessed land by gathering ordinary strength path immortal zombie bodies. But if I can gather the body of an immortal zombie of one of the 10 extreme physiques, I can possess the great strength true martial physique and own a super-grade blessed land. Moreover, the calamities and tribulations would have their might reduced by half. As long as I have enough time to cultivate, my strength will continue to grow, and I would have a chance at vying for that supreme throne of rank 9. Fang Yuan's eyes burned with the flames of passion. Rank 9 venerables were invincible in the world. This was a publicly recognized fact. If since ancient times, there has not been a 10 extreme physique venerable, did that imply that they would be the strongest even among the rank 9 venerables? In this world, the greatest in strength in all of history. I also have my first mortal aperture. If my revival goes smoothly, I can use this method again to cultivate time path and change my first mortal aperture to a super-grade blessed land. At that time, not only will I have the great strength true martial physique, I will also have the desolate ancient moon physique. Dual 10 extreme physique, and with time, a dual 10 extreme physique venerable? Thinking of this, Fang Yuan almost shed tears. In the 500 years of his previous life, and in this life, he had wandered from place to place, enduring many hardships and taking risks amidst life and death. Finally, now, at this moment, he found a hopeful path that could lead him to the grand ambition of immortality. Eternal life seemed to be an illusory goal, but if one did not have sufficient strength, then it was a target that was impossible to pursue to begin with. Strength path immortal zombies are already few in numbers. Since I have joined Zombie Alliance, I am unable to target the Alliance members. Great strength true martial physique immortal zombie. Where can I find one? Right now, there is only one optimal target. Hey Lulan. At that instant, Fang Yuan's eyes shined with a ferocious light. Although I cooperated with you to escape from Imperial Court blessed land and have obtained many benefits later on, having a rather pleasant experience, for the ambition that I seek, you have to be sacrificed. A faint smile appeared on Fang Yuan's face. Ruthless, callous. Chapter 940, Fang Yuan's plans. Chapter 940, Fang Yuan's plans. Since he obtained the life and death immortal aperture revival method, Fang Yuan naturally wanted to make as much use of it as he could. Regardless of whether it was in his previous life or now, cultivation aptitude was always a big regret for Fang Yuan. Now that he could fix this, Fang Yuan was extremely happy to do so. Most importantly, the life and death immortal aperture revival method for the 10 extreme physiques was too enticing. The advantage it gave towards cultivating was too great. However, it was extremely difficult to obtain a great strength true martial immortal zombie. Firstly, the 10 extreme physiques were very rarely seen. Even if they appeared, they could not cultivate easily. There were even fewer of those with the great strength true martial physique that cultivated to go immortal level. And on this basis, those who turned into immortal zombies and still had their bodies intact might simply be non-existent. Fang Yuan checked historical records and his memories, but there were no clues. Thus, He Lulan was his easiest target, and also the most appropriate and realistic one. Or rather, she was his only target. But the problems in front of Fang Yuan were not few. Firstly, He Lulan herself was a formidable person. She had both brains and brawn. In his previous life, she left her own mark in history. Such a person was not easy to deal with. She could risk her fight and battle all out while also scheming deeply. She could not be messed with casually. Secondly, He Lulan was not alone. She had the rank 7 Fairy Lishan supporting her. They had a close relationship. They would not turn on each other. To deal with He Lulan, Fang Yuan would also have to deal with Fairy Lishan. Thirdly, Fairy Lishan, He Lulan, and Fang Yuan had an alliance agreement. Finally, and what was also Fang Yuan's biggest problem, He Lulan knew the truth of Imperial Court blessed land. If he did not handle it appropriately, she would tell this truth to the world. By then, Fang Yuan would be hunted down by all the Gu immortals in the world. The allure of giant sun immortal venerables' inheritance would be so great that countless greedy Gu immortals would charge at him like a tsunami, completely drowning him. All in all, He Lu Lan was like a porcupine. If he was rash in dealing with her, not only might she be left unharmed, but he would also end up suffering major backlash. He Lu Lan. Oh He Lu Lan. If not for the fact that you have the great strength true martial physique, which helps my cultivation, I would not want to target you. Fang Yuan sighed internally. In the following days, Fang Yuan started his preparations on two aspects. On one hand, he needed to think about an appropriate way to harm He Lu Lan. On the other hand, he was refining Star Thought Immortal Gu while using letters to communicate with Fairy Li Shan on how to breach a contract. But days went by. He was making very slow progress in all of them. Ever since He Lu Lan realized her flaws, she made up her mind and focused on managing her blessed land. Since she could not hide inside Snowy Mountain blessed land anymore, she hid outside and went missing. After Fang Yuan returned to Dark Flow Giant City, he took action to once again go to Earth Trench and collect Star Night Mucus. After that, he used the Star Night Mucus to refine Star Thought Immortal Gu, but he failed again. Fairy Li Shan had cultivated Earth Path in the past. She later cultivated Information Path mainly alongside Wood Path. She had Mountain Pledge Immortal Gu. Her Information Path attainment was definitely higher than that of Fang Yuan. Earlier, she had gone against the agreement to deal with Dongfang tribe, but she was still alive and well now. This showed that not only was she skilled at making agreements, she was also able to break them. Information Path specialized in agreements. To make a comparison, they were like locks that restricted both parties. Fairy Li Shan was like a locksmith. She was skilled at making locks. She was certain to be good at opening them. Fang Yuan, Fairy Li Shan, and He Lu Lan. Even though they had an agreement, the deadline was approaching. Thus this agreement was not trouble. The reason Fang Yuan gave Fairy Li Shan was, he needed to deal with the agreement for joining Zombie Alliance. Fang Yuan had joined Zombie Alliance in Eastern Sea. He was restricted by the Zombie Alliance agreement. If I cannot get He Lu Lan, I can only lower my expectations and collect a large number of Strength Path Immortal Zombies. If that happens, I will need to break the Zombie Alliance agreement so that I can steal bodies inside the Zombie Alliance graveyard. The careful Fang Yuan would naturally not put all of his eggs in one basket. He would make all kinds of preparations. Therefore, these last days, Fang Yuan had been asking for information path methods from Fairy Li Shan often. The results were minimal. On one hand, Fairy Li Shan was guarding against Fang Yuan. He had developed too rapidly. It already made this third leader of Snowy Mountain Blessed Land feel threatened. Even though Fang Yuan offered a high price, she used the excuse of having to find immortal materials to reject him. Secondly, Fang Yuan had little understanding in regards to information path. With such low attainment, it was hard for him to learn something in this short period of time. Thirdly, was Zombie Alliance's agreement so easily broken? It was wishful thinking to expect Fang Yuan to be able to break it in such a short time. Even though he did not make any progress in information path, after interacting with Fairy Li Shan, Fang Yuan had a clear understanding of the fight between Zombie Alliance and Snowy Mountain Blessed Land using his own knowledge from being inside Northern Plains Zombie Alliance's base. Blazing Heaven Demonist tactic was very smart. These last days, she led the immortal zombies to attack the demonic path Gu. Immortals of Snowy Mountain Blessed Land continuously. Many of the demonic path Gu immortals had low luck to begin with. It was hard to collect immortal materials. But now with the immortal zombies wreaking havoc, they faced even more problems. Their gains were affected. Old Ancestor Shui who was helpless. The reason was simple. Even though he was a rank 8 great expert, he was just one person. Blazing Heaven Demonis had 3 rank 8 immortal zombies. If Blazing Heaven Demonis forcefully attacked Snowy Mountain Blessed Land, with Old Ancestor Shui whose battle strength, it was uncertain who would win. But Blazing Heaven Demonis avoided that. She made use of Old Ancestor Shui whose weakness. This made Old Ancestor Shui whose life much more difficult. If he attacked, he would not be around to guard Snowy Mountain Blessed Land. The defending Gu Immortals only had rank 7 cultivation level at the highest. Second leader Lady Wan Shou was skilled in refinement path, while third leader Fairy Li Shan cultivated information path. They both did not have high battle strength. If Old Ancestor Shui, who went out to attack, and was held up by an expert of the same rank, and Snowy Mountain Blessed Land was ransacked by the other rank 8 immortal zombies. Then that would turn him into the biggest laughingstock in Northern Plains. Especially that blazing heaven demoness. She did not have limits to her conduct. Back then, she even burned a 9 heavens fragment world, making it a lose-lose situation for everyone. Snowy Mountain Blessed Land was only a blessed land that was pieced together. It had lower defense than normal blessed lands. Old Ancestor Shui, who had to guard against her. Thus, even though Old Ancestor Shui, who had incredible battle strength against Zombie Alliance, he was at a disadvantage. He could not turn the situation around. Battle strength did not mean everything. Blazing Heaven Demoness. Experienced scheming made Old Ancestor Shui who suffer heavy losses, but he could not fight back effectively. Fang Yuan had no other choice but to be patient and focus his attention on refining Exert Strength Goo and Disappointment Goo. The Fang Yuan stone nests that he built were already at quite the sizes. Large numbers of hairy man slaves were working nonstop. The number of Exert Strength Goo and Disappointment Goo grew, but they were still far from the desired quantity. Even though Fang Yuan obtained those precious rank 8 immortal materials, he did not sell them yet. He kept them for now. Blazing Heaven Demoness was funding him in refining Star Thought Immortal Goo. Every month, Fang Yuan's profits were used for refining Goo worms, feeding Immortal Goo, as well as developing Star Form Blessed Land. He purchased large amounts of cloud soil, ordering Star Form Land Spirit to arrange them. He wanted to build a giant 3-dimensional river system, using the ample space to cultivate Star Fragment Grass. This had huge prospects if it succeeded. The profits would not be lower than Guts Goo, but the initial investment was huge. Fang Yuan could only develop it one step at a time. He wanted to deal with He Lu Lan, but that might expose his crimes. It was too easy for He Lu Lan to expose the truth. Even though there was an alliance, she had Fairy Li Shan's help if she wanted to breach the contract. She had a greater advantage than Fang Yuan. All along, Fang Yuan had been feeling anxious. The investigation of the Central Continent Goo Immortals could not be making zero progress. Perhaps tomorrow, Central Continent Goo Immortals would come and attack Hu Immortal Blessed Land. There was no way he could defend Hu Immortal Blessed Land. Once it was lost, Starform Blessed Land would be Fang Yuan's only place to retreat to. As the saying goes, a sly rabbit makes 3 dens, not to mention the old demon Fang Yuan. On this day, Fang Yuan was activating the refinement path Goo formation, processing a certain immortal material. Inside his dead aperture, moving perspective cup Goo activated, bringing a letter from Fairy Li Shan. Fang Yuan felt this was strange. This letter was actually Fairy Li Shan approaching him. Opening it, it was a letter requesting for help. As it turned out, Fairy Li Shan found traces of He Chung. He Chung was the father of He Lu Lan. She wanted to take revenge for her mother. He was someone she had to kill. Fairy Li Shan's letter asked Fang Yuan to come along and kill He Chung. He Chung's circumstances were not good. As a person who held power in the super force He tribe, he went missing for a long time, the 100 Days battle, and by the time he reappeared, he was in a pathetic state, being hunted down secretly by He tribe itself. In fact, in order to save his life, He Chung sacrificed the rank 6 immortal Goo House Dark Prison. This was the symbol of strength in He tribe. It was also their trump card. He actually lost it. Even though He Chung had great authority, in this situation, he would still be punished according to the rules of the tribe. The immortal Goo House Dark Prison was not his. The core immortal Goo that made up the immortal Goo House came from the 4 supreme elders of He tribe. After the Central Continent Goo Immortals divided up Dark Prison, they brought the immortal Goo back to their sects. One of the immortal Goo had already been forcefully refined by a Central Continent Goo Immortal. Thus, the He tribe supreme elders learned about it. He Chung had committed a huge mistake. He needed to be punished. He Chung did not want to hand himself over. Before he participated in Shadow Sect's activities, he had made an agreement with them. He could not expose any details. Regarding Shadow Sect, this alliance agreement had a strong restriction. He Chung could not explain the matter to his tribe. He could only escape. He tribe was unwilling to let him go. The immortal Goo House was extremely important. It affected their deterrence capability and strength. It had to be taken back, and He Chung was the clue. Thus, He tribe sent Gu immortals to capture He Cheng. After both sides fought several times, He Cheng narrowly escaped. As the commotion got larger, Fairy Li Shan learned about it. She and He Lulan discussed it. They felt that now was the best time to take revenge. After He Cheng had been abandoned by his tribe, they needed to have greater numbers as assurance in killing a Gu immortal. Thus, Fairy Li Shan immediately contacted Fang Yuan. Before the alliance expired, they now had an excellent chance to make use of him. While it was true that the compensation that Fairy Li Shan gave was very profitable, Fang Yuan also had his own motives. This was a good opportunity. Hey, Lu Lan had been staying hidden all this time. Only during a chaotic battle could Fang Yuan find a chance to take action.